When board games give us more, we're rolling with more. Hi, I'm Will, and with me as always is the person who doesn't have pips on her dice. She has small moons.
Sarah.
And today we're reviewing Alien Frontiers Factions and the Faction promo packs. Sarah, tell us a bit about this expansion.
I never thought about the pips on dice being little moons, but thank you now.
Yes.
I have that in my head.
Okay.
All right. So the Factions expansion adds components for another player, faction boards, agendas, and more alien tech cards. Faction packs 1 through 4 each add a faction and related components. So let's break it down and go over what's new. Factions, specifically the player components in purple, get added. There are 8 faction boards, there's agenda cards, and alien tech cards. And the faction packs 1 through 4 each add a new faction board, a pair of new alien tech cards, and any extra components that they might need. So moving on to the 2-player experience, Will.
Yes. Probably should mention how a faction board works.
That's a good idea.
So it's a little board, and the player who has it gets a power. So asymmetric powers already abound just from setting up with this. Also, each faction board will have a space that players can put their dice on. Now, if you own it, you don't have to pay anything extra, just whatever the space's cost is, because some will say, pay a fuel to do something.
What the ability cost is.
If anyone else wants to use it, they'll have to pay an additional cost. It's 1 fuel to the owner of the faction board. But then from there, they just do the action as intended, whether it's paying resources or whatever, that goes to the bank.
Yeah.
But that is how a faction works.
Right. So that's kind of one of the things that really affects a 2-player experience is now you have this heavy asymmetric power. So before in the base game, you would each get an alien tech card to start the game, but it's not as big of an impact.
Right. Well, like for example, if I had something that gave me a certain power to, say, flip dice, there are additional copies of that card in there. Sarah could get it as well, and they would both have the same card. Or she could hunt the tech deck until she found it, and then she'd still get it.
Or I could steal it from him.
Yes.
Alien tech cards are less powerful, but also movable and sacrificable.
Yes.
Right.
You can discard them.
You can discard them to do the ability. But with these faction boards, the powers are much potentially stronger in the right circumstances.
And you can't ever lose them.
The problem being is they're not exactly balanced. And if you get one, or even if you get choices of ones that just don't work with the way you play, or you just don't quite see how to optimize it, the other person can just run away with the game even easier.
Yeah, I think you said it with that whole under the right circumstances.
Yes.
And circumstances play a huge factor in just how powerful each faction is.
Yeah.
2-player, certain factions are better. 4-player, certain factions are better. 3-player, certain factions are better.
Right. And I think just in general, because you can have a much bigger swing between 2 players, it's going to have feels like it has a greater impact.
Right.
And so we're struggling because we like this concept a lot. We love asymmetric powers.
Oh, it's fun to play.
We love these boards that they give a new worker placement spot, because there are times that you're like, I have 1 extra die. What am I going to do with it? That's interesting, because you can always try to just put another colony out with any die. But that's kind of boring. So this would give you potentially something else more interesting to do. And it just comes down to they just never feel balanced at all. And so they become more frustrating and disappointing. I
think it probably is a little bit more noticeable at a 2-player count.
Right.
Where those asymmetric powers are more easily distinguished from one another and are more comparable to one another.
That's true. So, yeah. Another thing about this introduces agenda cards, which is kind of neat because now it's like, ooh, new ways to earn more points. But then it also becomes a, well, you can complete 3 over the course of the game and you better because each one's worth 1 point. And if you don't and someone else does, well, that's just 3 points you gave up on doing. But the problem is they're highly situational. Some are really not good in a 2-player setting because it requires player interaction to happen.
Yes.
And
or very, very creative playing.
Yes.
I mean, extremely creative way.
Now you get 2 given to you at the beginning of the game, and there are ways to get more, but it's kind of tedious. You have to go out of your way to get new cards. So if you're doing the get agenda cards action, you're not doing other things that could actually move you forward. And like I said, it kind of almost feels like you are obligated to get these done because especially in a 2-player count, if you don't and the other person does,
you probably lost.
You've probably lost, yes.
Now, it is nice that each agenda card on their face is divided into 2 types.
Yes.
And all agenda cards have this. On the left side is during the course of the game, you can do whatever it outlines, go, hey, I did it, reveal it, score the point.
Yep.
Or at the end of the game, which is on the right side of the cards, if you haven't revealed your card, but you've met the right side, which tends to be a little bit easier.
Yes. It's easier at a 2-player count because I was thinking that's the one spot that
it's harder in the
it would be harder. So some of them are be in control of this area. That's a little easier to do at a 2-player count because again, less competition as we discussed in the base game.
Yeah, so the right side is like at the end of the game, okay, if I met this at the very least, then I can reveal my agenda card and score it that way instead.
Exactly.
So it's nice to have a little bit of versatility in the agenda cards.
Exactly. So that's that. So I think that covers the 2-player experience with factions. Accessibility. This ramps up the complexity. Especially if you're playing with both factions and agendas, it could be overwhelming because we do think that Alien Frontiers at its base game is accessible to most casual gamers. Adding this in could break some of those players.
Yeah, because it's now, especially like with agendas, hey, think about this.
Yeah, and, they're like, and keep it in mind.
Yeah, keep it in mind. And like, oh, right. Okay, I'm thinking, taking my turn. Ah, crap, I forgot about it.
Right, like for example, for me, I had to get a card tray to keep those cards face up so that I could always glance at them because if they were face down on the table, I literally forgot about them and just wouldn't do them. So that's an accessibility cognitive wise of now there's another factor that you need to remember. And it's your first hidden information aspect. Now, granted, it's all text, right?
Yes, it's all text.
So you were able to read them just fine.
Right.
There's no...
Yeah, it's no barrier to see the thing.
Right.
It's just remembering to do the thing. Mm-hmm. And they do make you play very differently.
Yeah.
I remember one of the games, Sarah's looking at me, it's like, what are you waiting for? Because I like had this stockpile of resources. Mm-hmm. I had all these things ready to go. And she's like, just do it. Why are you waiting? And then finally I got everything together, took this giant turn where I'm placing all these colonies out, and then I go, haha, agenda. And she's like, oh.
And I will have to say, it does feel a little weird to have to put so much work for one victory point. But this is a low point scoring game, so it fits, but it feels weird. Mm-hmm. All right. The other thing accessibility-wise is purple may or may not be the most accessible. If anything, they're a really dark purple, and I think what's really not accessible about them is they did black pips on a dark purple die. I had trouble seeing those. So if you like purple and the rocket and the colonies are distinct enough from other people's pieces, you might just want to find a different set of purple D6s that have better contrasting pips, because that was not a good choice.
Yeah. It was a choice.
It was a choice, but not a good choice.
Little black planets. All
right, before we get on to our ratings, let's talk about what we like and don't like. Some of this is going to kind of be repeating, so we'll take it, we'll go fast. Factions.
Fun, but not balanced.
Yeah, it's great concept, but it's just implementation not so great.
Yes.
Agendas.
Nice to have more scoring, but can be cognitively frustrating.
Yes, especially with how much work it feels like you have to go out of your way to do to earn 1 victory point. I think that's really it, because that's the 2 things this expansion introduced.
Yes.
All right.
And then we did kind of mention there's the promos.
Yeah.
But all of those are simply factions and tech cards that support their ways of playing.
Right, and so we haven't really talked about the tech cards that get added because it's just
It's more factions.
It's more faction.
It's nice to have 12
yes.
rather than 8.
Right, and then the tech cards are just more tech cards, so it makes the deck a little bigger.
Yeah.
All right, so how did it roll for us?
So the base game rolled a 4 for you and a 5 for me. Did Alien Frontiers Factions change for you?
Yeah, so Factions did firmly roll it down to a 3. I had been kind of on the cusp with the base game, but there's so much. I think it's because there's so much I really wanted to like about Factions, and it just disappoints. It rolls it down, and I just don't like agendas. I don't want to play with agendas. It's a complication I don't want.
It's probably because I'm so good at playing with agendas.
Yeah.
But she also doesn't want to deny me. She's like, well, that's like the one thing that you're really good at. And
Yeah.
I don't want to just say you can't play with it because, you're good at it.
You could just give me 3 points and then...
That is not how agendas work.
I know. Well, how did your rating change if it did?
It also rolled down. It rolled down to a 4. The reason being is this has the most potential for upsetting someone and having a negative experience.
Yes.
When the base game is, I would say, for the most part, fairly positive all the way around.
Yeah.
So I did have a fantastic time playing with Factions. I like playing with Factions. I like what it offers. But I know that it comes at a price. Mm-hmm. And the price is somebody's going to be on the short end of the stick.
And it's usually me, and then I get cranky, and you don't like me when I'm cranky. He doesn't like me when I'm cranky.
So, avoiding cranky space. This is one of those, I have to choose it judiciously. Mm-hmm. When we play with Factions.
Yeah, and it could be one of those things that maybe one time, because we did play with both, maybe one time we just play with just Factions, leave agendas out. Or one time just play with agendas and leave the Factions out, because the 2 modules are independent of one another.
Right.
And maybe then that would lessen the potential for cranky space.
Very possible.
All right, let's talk about who this is for, now that you've kind of heard our mixed opinions on it.
Yes.
It is going to be for those more experienced gamers who want more complexity to their game.
This puts it in a more medium weight game. Still not a heavy game.
No.
By any means, but it does give that extra level that I know a hardcore gamer would really thrive on.
Right. And it does add variety. So those who feel like the base game is getting samey and you want to shake it up, Factions is great because, again, you have 2 different modules. You don't have to play with both if you end up liking one more than the other. So you can just add a bit more to what's going on. And so that shakes things up there.
Right.
All right. That's everything.
All right. And Sarah.
Yeah.
When it comes to factions, why is there only one faction with a miniature?
You know, that is odd. There's one that adds a little rover that moves around on the board. I don't know. They seem like they try to keep the components minimal, but then there's that one outlier.
Yeah.
That just, there's a thing, and you can run it around the board.
It's neat and all, but I want more factions that have little miniatures.
I agree. Once they have one, it would have been nice to have more that do that, but I don't know.
Makes me sad.
Makes me sad too.
And we've been rolling with more. And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And if you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.